have you all. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll moderate and bring those over to Jonathan as we go. So very, very happy to have you. I will tell you guys we are in good hands. Jonathan is a fantastic presenter and covers the in-vehicle mobile solution and just LTE wireless solutions as well as anyone I've ever listened to. So, but don't tell any of your friends at Cradlepoint, Jonathan.
I won't.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll hand it over to you, Jonathan.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate it. Again, as Anna said, my name is Jonathan Farmerie, and I am the regional sales manager for Cradlepoint, covering Ohio, Kentucky, and West Virginia on the public sector side. So I'm currently doing this presentation from my home in beautiful southwest suburb of Cleveland. And believe it or not, the sun is shining and there are blue skies. So this is one day out of the next 4 months that we should see the sun. So I'm very excited about that, to have this conversation with you all today. Really appreciate ByteSpeed and their partnership and helping to put this together. And we can talk a little bit more later on kind of where the ByteSpeed relationship goes with Cradlepoint. But today's conversation really is about the vehicle area network, kind of, the history behind where it is, maybe to provide some additional level setting from a network perspective, and then talk through what Cradlepoint has done to provide a very, very high level solution for the connected enterprise in public safety. So obviously, when we're doing these webinars, it's challenging to see if people are understanding what I'm saying, or if you guys are just nodding off. But if that's the case, please feel free to interrupt me, or like Anna said in the chat, ask a question. We'll do our best to answer that question. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a background on Cradlepoint for those of you who are not familiar with us. Cradlepoint was founded back in 2006 and is headquartered in Boise, Idaho. It was founded originally, and we sort of got our bearings and our footsteps in what we call the branch enterprise. So providing failover solutions to businesses to make sure that they can maintain their connectivity if their primary wired network failed or went out. So when we talk about Cradlepoint, really our company is very passionate about the wireless WAN. And so when you say, okay, well, what's the wireless WAN? Well, when we think about the WAN, we're talking about the wide area network. And a lot of times people will usually correlate those two with the internet, right? So providing the internet wirelessly. And so we've positioned ourselves historically through the years as a cellular first company. And then we've added all sorts of different features and functionality that provide enterprise grade solutions in mobile, IoT, and branch connectivity solutions. So we feel like we're very uniquely positioned in this marketplace as we move forward. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what the difference of those networks are to give you a better understanding. The other thing I wanted to note is that literally just about a year ago, Cradlepoint was acquired by Ericsson. Ericsson is a world leader in cellular networking technology, and they are continuing to operate Cradlepoint as a wholly owned subsidiary. So we are partnering with Ericsson and look forward to a lot of different synergies moving forward from the actual cellular network side of the equation. So you may not know this, but you may be working with Cradlepoint, and your day really might begin and end with Cradlepoint without you even knowing it. So again, we talked a little bit about fixed site wireless failover. And so when you walk into a Starbucks or you walk into a McDonald's, they have a Cradlepoint that's sitting in the back. You then may jump on a transit bus that's providing passenger Wi-Fi, smart cities technology. So for SCADA and for traffic controllers and things of that nature, a lot of those things are being controlled by Cradlepoint. And then as you move forward, we're going to talk today a lot about the public safety networks and the vehicle area networks within public safety, but also things like a red box, right? So they have a Cradlepoint inside that's providing that connectivity for credit cards, for actual inventory control, and sort of all of the above. We really are the market leader and one of the world's market leaders in cellular edge routing technology. And so you see right here, some of the different organizations that we work with, but we also work with a very large partner community. So Cradlepoint actually is the original equipment manufacturer of hardware and software services. So we work with a lot of different partners, including great partners such as ByteSpeed, to help us reach our market potential. So when you see all these different partners, that sort of gives you a good understanding of kind of where our reach is. And one of the things that we've been successful in doing and working with Ericsson is growing our world market. So we are doing a lot of work in Latin America and Europe. And we continue to grow that business, including APAC as well. So we've really are turning more into a much larger international company with a very, very strong focus continued on North America. I also want to kind of show you from a public safety perspective, where we sit and really that we are a trusted partner of public safety. We work with a lot of the largest police departments in the country and really everyone in between. So anyone who has 10,000 cars, all the way down to somebody who has a single car or two cars, really we work to partner with everyone to help provide them with a mission critical enterprise grade connectivity solution. So again, really just another slide. The reason I left this one in is because one of the things that, is very, very powerful is that we currently have over 1 million endpoints that are on our NetCloud Manager software platform. And I thought that was really interesting for us to share because that means that we continue to grow in scale. And as we do that, we continue to increase features and functionality to make this solution even better. So before I get started in the vehicle area network, I wanted to see if we could do some level setting. And I thought that this might help overall with people's understanding of sort of how all this networking works and really kind of simplify it and break it down a little bit. So when we think of a basic wired network, this is what we're talking about, like when we're in our house, right? So, we get home and we want to, connect our YouTube TV, or we have our cell phones on Wi-Fi. Well, how is that delivered today? Normally, the way it's delivered is that there is literally a wire that is run into your home that connects to a modem, which then connects to a router, which then provides those services either wired or wirelessly. The same goes for your police stations. So as you see up here in the diagram, if we work backwards to forwards, you see those individual devices that require connectivity, whether that's computers, phones, surveillance, copy machines, printers, anything that really requires internet connectivity. Those are all connected to a router, which then connect to a firewall, which then are, again, this is all wired into the station. And then there's literally a wire from that station to the internet service provider. That could be, a Comcast or an AT&T or a Verizon. And then that literally has points of presence onto the internet. So again, in a wired scenario, it really sort of helps simplify things. So like you even think about it, some of the things that people historically have thought about with the wired connection, they feel very secure, right? They feel like, since it's physically wired, that, it's not going to go down. They feel that, they're able to add appliances like firewalls onto their existing on-site premise. So again, they feel very secure. And this again has been the way that things have been done for a long time. Next, I wanted to kind of show you what the basic cellular network diagram is. And you'll see that realistically, that network looks pretty similar to our wired network, with the last exception being at the end. And you see kind of the thunderbolt there. And what that thunderbolt indicates is that that device that's in your squad car or your cell phone or your tablet or your iPad is communicating wirelessly to the cellular tower. But from there, that connection really is a wired connection. But again, so historically, this makes things a little bit more challenging, right? So in the past, we had a wire that would connect our devices or our peripheral devices that required connectivity. Now, when we look at it, we are having to take into different considerations, like we might be moving, or there might be, different geographical topography issues that block the cellular frequency. We may see foliage on trees that causes problems, and so we've had to really account for that. The good news story is that cellular technology has evolved dramatically over the years, and really is in a place now that makes it extremely secure, extremely reliable, and it provides a lot of flexibility from a connectivity environment. So I wanted to kind of look back and say, okay, well, to better understand where we're at from the vehicle area network today, we kind of have to understand where we came from and where some of that historic communications and what those were, back in the day, prior to all of this technology being outfitted into the field. So, we look at it, and obviously, the land mobile radio or the radio network that the first responders utilize has been around for, darn near 100 years now. And it was implemented shortly after into police cars. So we see those old school radios, and back in the day, and again, I have not worn a badge, but from talking to a lot of different officers in the field, originally it was just about voice communications. As things kind of evolved, we started to move into certain data applications that became more and more prevalent. So, you look at one of in the bottom right-hand corner is really one of the original Motorola mobile data terminals that went into a squad car. And so what they found is that they had this sort of nice to have tool that augmented the land mobile radio service. And that added things like being able to pull down, perp information, or, if you were on a call, you were able to get very, very basic information out in the field. And obviously that has continued to evolve with the different databases that are out there, whether you're in Leeds in Ohio, able to really pull down a lot of information during a traffic stop that has become really part of the everyday operations within public safety in the field. From there, we've actually seen an even larger push to add additional productivity for the officers that are in the field. And that means that we're really looking to provide that experience that we have within the police station or within the four walls out in the field. So as we've done that, we've added different connectivity options, and I'm sure that a lot of you have seen those different dongles or different means of connectivity on the top right hand side, whether it was an old school USB modem or a sort of a jetpack or a personal hotspot. Again, these were means of delivering basic connectivity to the squad car when there really was nothing else. But what we're seeing now in this emergence into the mobile office of the true vehicle area network is that we have a lot of different peripherals or applications that require connectivity, whether that's a laptop or a tablet, body cams, dash cams, LPRs, integration with AVL, report management systems, DVRs, the list goes on, e-printers, e-citations. As we continue to evolve and are looking to gain the most out of the productivity of the officer in the field, and while maintaining their safety in the field, to continue to be armed with real-time data information from all of those different databases, we have to put together a solution that is able to provide them with very, very high levels of connectivity. So this is really kind of the evolution into where we are today. And this isn't even to take into account what we potentially could see in the vehicle area network of tomorrow. Things like having drones in the trunk that are called to surveil a specific area in the future, having artificial intelligence embedded onto body cams and DVRs and LPRs. Those are things that are going to require very, very high levels of connectivity and very, very high levels of throughput. Are there any questions so far? I thought I'd stop and ask.
Nothing in the chat so far, so we're doing good.
Awesome. So what are some of the challenges to that vehicle area network? So we've already stated that applications continue to grow, and I talk to a lot of different folks in law enforcement, a lot of different departments across my territory, and as many as there are, there are a lot of different agencies that are sort of on the cutting edge, and they're adding these different peripherals, and they may have a very strong vehicle area network, but we also still have a lot of folks that are really just trying to maintain data connectivity for their mobile data terminal or their computer inside their vehicle. And so all of these really require the capability to have consistent connectivity. So, when we look at some of these challenges, we look at inconsistent connectivity. We look at the inability for folks to manage consumer grade devices that they've been repurposed into the squad car. So, a good example of that is that a lot of times, based on, limited resources, we have command staff, or we have a selected individual patrol officer that's responsible for the IT in the field. And so they're responsible to manage the cellular connectivity. They're required to manage the MDTs. They're required to help manage the CAD AVL software. And, having to actually go and physically touch these devices can be very, very challenging. We also have to provide an environment for security. We've got to make sure that we're compliant in all of the individual requirements that are set forth. There's these environments that they're in are demanding, especially up here in the Midwest, right? So, having extreme temperatures from a warm and a cold perspective, making sure that we have continuous power for a lot of these devices in the field. We also want to make sure that as we're making investments and we're helping to control costs, that we support future growth, that we aren't, putting something in our vehicles that is going to be short-lived. And then obviously we have to be responsive to the individual growth in the application market that we see moving forward. So, in the past, again, we may be wanting to just talk back to our head end, back to our office, but now we have cloud applications that we are responsible for getting. So things like Office 365 from an email perspective, or even specific AVL applications that are now cloud-based. All of these require a very, very strong network inside the vehicle. So where does it start? Well, from the Cradlepoint perspective, it starts with the hardware. And one of the things that we've done is we've gone through rigorous standards-based requirements to ensure that our hardware works when it needs to work out in the field, out in the elements. So we've gone and we've got military spec 810G for dust shock, vibration, blowing rain. We have an extreme temperature range that we work from 22 degrees Fahrenheit to 158 degrees Fahrenheit, -30 Celsius to 70 Celsius. So again, these are operating ranges. We do work very, very hard to make sure that these devices, once they're deployed, they just work. And then I wanted to kind of just give you something that you could see. So, this kind of gives you an example of our mobile portfolio here at Cradlepoint. And, one of the things that you may hear me talk about a lot is a cellular gateway. And when I say that, the reason why I say that is if you can see on those devices, you see a lot of different ports, right? Whether it's, an Ethernet port. So something requires wired connectivity, or Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth, or IO capabilities for adding sensors in the cars for, pulling, when the shotgun comes off of the rack, that there's an alert that can be sent, or or if you're trying to plug into the onboard diagnostics port in the vehicle to know about things like seatbelt sensoring or engine diagnostics. So when I talk about a cellular gateway, what I'm talking about truly is the ability to connect various amounts of peripherals that are in and around the vehicle. So I wanted to give you kind of be able to let you see these devices to give you a better understanding of what we're talking about. And, you know, again, a lot of these different, you know, capabilities and physical functionalities vary depending on sort of the good, better, best model that we have. So when you look at the IBR 900, very, very good device, but limited in its range of connectivity options. You know, we move forward kind of into that better option, which is the IBR 1700. And the IBR 1700, it really is a workhorse. We have a lot of these deployed in Ohio from the state police, same down in Kentucky as well. And then moving on to our newest device, which is our R1900. And this truly is our first 5G device that's built from the ground up. And it's added some additional capabilities and functionality like Wi-Fi 6, for example. So again, data offload at the bay is very, very important as we continue to use more and more video data that requires upload on a daily or nightly basis. So again, really wanted to give you an idea of, you know, kind of what these devices are, what they look like. And when you feel them and you touch them, you know, these are all metal enclosed. They have heat sink capabilities that are on them to make sure that they operate, you know, in those stringent weather conditions. Something else that's really key to this solution are roof-mounted antennas. And some of the things that, you know, when we talk about the cellular environment, and I sort of alluded to this before, you know, we are truly, it's pretty magical that we're able to provide an experience that's similar to a wired network when we're out and about. And one of the keys to this is really making sure that you have the best possible antennas on your vehicles. So when you think about, you know, the vehicle today, you think about, you know, having a land mobile radio inside. Maybe the officer has a cell phone. A lot of electromagnetic interference occurring. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we try and eliminate that one of those barriers. And by doing that, we can add one of these roof mount antennas. And it really goes hand in hand with our solution. So when you see these little gold things on the side of the router, what those are physical antenna ports. And so to make sure that we are providing the highest level of throughput capabilities, we want to make sure that our antenna solution matches those individual requirements. So again, we partner with a lot of different antenna vendors in a lot of shapes and sizes, and we can help you along with the ByteSpeed team to select the best antenna for your solution. So another thing that comes up quite a bit is, how do we manage connectivity? So what I mean by that is that when we're in the vehicle area network, a lot of times we're talking about cellular connectivity. So whether we're using a Verizon or an AT&T, a T-Mobile, or a FirstNet, you know, these different cellular connections. But now, as we come onto the station, a lot of the stations are equipped with wireless access points. And the original benefit of having those wireless access points was that the devices were able to upload data from the DVR that from the dash cam footage. And a lot of times that's still in existence today. But by using our cellular gateway, by using a Cradlepoint router, what we can actually do is the router has intelligence to be able to understand what's the best connectivity for that device at any given time. And so you can actually manage that connectivity through the Cradlepoint device in the NetCloud Manager software, which we're going to talk about in a second. So I wanted this to kind of be apparent, as, you know, I see this all the time, you know, having the capability for that device to switch on and off from cellular to that wireless access point. And the reason why you would do that is because you want to make sure that that you have the best possible throughput capabilities and that you're controlling the amount of cellular data that you're utilizing. So I wanted to make sure that this was aware as well, that you were aware of this as well, as it pertains to the actual connectivity management in the field. So this really is our secret sauce. This is what makes Cradlepoint technology unique. So we talked about the individual hardware capabilities. We have very, very strong embedded cellular radios. We write custom firmware for those cellular radios to get every possible capability out of them. But really what makes Cradlepoint unique is our NetCloud Manager software. And what NetCloud Manager software is it truly is a cloud management software tool that helps users provision, control, monitor, and analyze the data in the field. So one of the things I hear all the time from folks in the field is, and I alluded to it before, is that we have very limited resources in being able to manage this connectivity. And guess what? You know, we utilize this connectivity in the field all day, every day. You know, this isn't something that is sparsely used. This is something that is used all the time. You know, not just to be productive, but also to provide officer safety in the field. So having the ability for someone to, or a group of folks to manage these devices or the environment in the field is very, very powerful. So the first thing we look at in our dashboard is very quick glances about, you know, what devices are connected, you know, how you know, what's going on out in the field. And then even from a troubleshooting perspective, how do we manage troubleshooting? You know, historically, we've had to go out and touch things. You know, literally, hey, I got to have this car come back and come off the street and touch it and try and make it work. And then, you know, I have to try and parse out what's really the problem. Is it the modem? Is it the cellular network? Is it an application? Is it the computer? And that makes things extremely challenging. So when you look at NetCloud Manager, think that we have a really comprehensive single pane of glass that's going to give you a lot of information at your fingertips. One of the things that I show all the time is, you know, sometimes I used to work for a cellular carrier and I worked there for years. And I remember that sometimes there would be challenges with connectivity in the field. And so we would have to ask very, very detailed questions to provide to our network folks so that they could help troubleshoot. So we would have to ask things like, what's the device electronic serial number? What's the SIM ID? Where was the problem? Where did the problem take place? At what time did it take place? And that obviously becomes very, very cumbersome, as the officers in the field aren't there to do that. They're there to make sure that they're protecting and serving the public. So a lot of these things we baked into our NetCloud Manager platform. So it makes controlling this environment extremely manageable. And that is a huge difference between the environments that we looked at, you know, previously with our USB modem or our hotspot, or even an embedded device, you know, that's in a Toughbook or a GTAC device in the field. So the other major thing is, how do we provision these devices? How do we make sure that we have consistency across the enterprise? And this is all done through our configuration capabilities within NetCloud Manager as well. So when you look at this, we have configurations done on a couple of different levels. We do it primarily on the group level. So if we have macro changes that we require, or macro configurations, like say, for example, GPS or AVL configurations that need to take place so that the Cradlepoint can send GPS data to an AVL server, or say we wanted to set security parameters in that device, or maybe even different local network settings within the vehicle. That's all done and provisioned on the macro level. So that we create those groups, and then also from those groups, we have the capability to do things like update firmware, you know, update carrier firmware, make sure that the devices are operating at the highest level. From there, we have an individual group configuration as well. So when you have all of your different devices loaded into NetCloud Manager and you've created your group configuration, literally it's a couple of clicks and you can then provision all of those individual devices and move them into the group. If there are device configurations that are specific to that device, let's say, for example, a Wi-Fi hotspot, SSID, or a password for whatever reason, that can then be done at the individual device level, and that configuration supersedes that of the group. But really, the true beauty of this is that it is a point and click. It's a drag and drop. And need I say, it is a very, very seamless configuration process. So quite literally, you don't have to touch or provision or program these devices individually, because what happens is, as the devices come online and they connect to that cellular network, they go out to NetCloud Manager, they communicate, and they download that configuration. And now you have those devices provisioned and you have control of those devices in the field. It also allows you to continue to monitor those moving forward, and then analyze, the environment or the data applications that are being used in the car. So again, very, very comprehensive solution, but hopefully what you could see is that no matter what your environment, you could piece out individual bits of the benefits of NetCloud Manager and really provide a very, very good user experience. So I sort of talked about this a little bit, but as we continue to add different applications and different connectivity devices or devices in the field that require connectivity, it's very, very important for us to understand the environment in which those devices live and the ability to manage those from a single pane of glass. Because again, we already talked about the fact that resources are limited from the IT side of the house. So one of the ways that we do that is we provide, the ability to connect to peripheral devices through our Cradlepoint. So let me give you an example for that. So let's say I wanted to update, Windows software on an MDT. Historically, we may have had to go through some sort of an application, or we'd have to have the officer bring those devices in. We'd have to go and sit in the car and do updates. One of the things that we've built in is a secure means of connecting those devices connected to the Cradlepoint devices. So I have my Cradlepoint device that's sitting in my car. Let's say, for example, it's sitting in my trunk. And then I have, an MDT that's connected to that Cradlepoint, either through a wired connection or through Wi-Fi. In NetCloud Manager, I have the ability to contact and talk to that MDT through a secure connection that gives me the capability to run specific applications, like remote desktop or VNC connectivity to do things like update software or really understand that environment. We also have actual network visibility into whether it's that wireless access point back in our HQ or the cellular connectivity. And then we can get real-time visibility into our applications that are running into the cloud. So again, what this really does and what I'm really trying to show here is that not only are you using NetCloud Manager to understand the environment of the Cradlepoint, but you want to also understand devices that are connected to the Cradlepoint and the cellular environment or wired or wireless connection environment that you're in. This is just another graphical example of, the ability to do that remote troubleshooting from NetCloud Manager. So one of the other things that we hear all the time, especially from agencies that really cover, whether it's very, very large geographic territories or in very, very rural environments, is they sometimes have challenges with their network. And so what we did is we literally built in a coverage map inside of NetCloud Manager that allows you to graphically understand what the cellular environment looks like in near real time. So basically what's happening is let's say I have a Cradlepoint in my car and I drive from Cleveland down to Charleston, West Virginia. What we've done in NetCloud Manager is we are actually gathering data from the Cradlepoint device as it communicates with the cellular network as we're moving. We then take that data and then we represent it graphically here. And what that'll really do is that it'll give you a really good understanding of your cellular environment in and around the area in which you work. And this can be really important because I used to say this all the time. A lot of times it isn't the fact that you don't necessarily have network connectivity, although that's very, very important. It's very important to understand where those holes are so that you can make plans around them. So this was a really, really unique application that we've built into NetCloud as part of our advanced NetCloud Manager software. The other thing that we have too is that we have the capability of adding sort of an AVL light, if you will, solution. And really, again, this isn't going to replace, very, very high-end, AVL data that's part of a CAD package, but it can provide sort of an additional means for you to have real-time tracking of the devices in the field, and really provide additional data analytics about your cellular environment. So we can also do things like basic breadcrumb trails to know where devices were, and really just provide you that understanding of where the devices are and where they've been. So again, built into our advanced package in NetCloud Manager. The other thing that I thought was worth noting is that we do a lot of integration with AVL systems. So I talked to you a little bit about sort of the mobile office, if you will. So that component of the vehicle area network. But the other thing that our Cradlepoints have embedded in them is active GPS radios. And so literally those GPS radios communicate with the satellites and provide very, very high degrees of accuracy on location-based services. So in a lot of cases, we can provision our Cradlepoint to gather that data and then send it, whether it's to a server that has, an AVL server that sits in the cloud or an AVL server that sits, back at your HQ. We also have the capability to send that data locally to a mobile data terminal, which then takes that data and sends it across the network. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that we had this capability. We also work with some AVL partners to provide integration from NetCloud Manager into their systems to provide an even more in-depth AVL solution from a GPS perspective. So I wanted you to understand that too. So we have the connectivity environment, the mobile office to provide connectivity to all those peripherals we talked about, but also integration with CAD AVL solutions to make sure that we know where those devices are at any given time. So I've talked about this in a little bit as we've continued down the path, but one of the things that Cradlepoint decided to do a few years back is work on a subscription model for our devices. And this is really our service delivery model and how we work. So in the past, you could say, look, I want to buy this piece of hardware and I'm going to manage it, and I'm going to make sure that it works, and I'm going to go touch it when I need to. And we're really interested in the hardware. Well, that was great. But the challenge is that for long-term solutions, we found that really didn't work well, that failed. So what we did is we created a subscription model that we sell in 1, 3, and 5 years. And what this model is inclusive of is the physical hardware, right? So you saw it before. You saw those, IBR 900 or the IBR 1700, the R1900. It includes our NetCloud Manager software. So for as long as you have that subscription, 1, 3, or 5 year, you have that NetCloud Manager software. You have the capability to manage that device remotely from the cloud, update firmware, get all of those goodies that are baked in. We also include our support, right? So when we have an enterprise grade solution, we need to make sure that if something does go wrong, that you have individual hand-holding that provides you a high level of support when you need it. So we provide that 7x24 support that's included in this model as well. The other thing that we do is we provide very, very comprehensive online training through our Cradlepoint University platform. This can be accessed through NetCloud Manager, and it will provide you with as little or as in-depth knowledge on the Cradlepoint solution that you would like. The last piece is that it includes our warranty and our extended warranty. So through that 1, 3, or 5 year model. So really what we found is that to be successful in these, what we used to call Internet of Things or machine-to-machine applications, is we need to bundle all of these things together. And that's really what Cradlepoint has done. That's how we're really, really successful. So what I could tell you is that in a law enforcement or in public safety environment, many, many times we see folks trying to amortize these costs over a 5-year period. So we'll see them make an investment for the NetCloud subscription for a 5-year model. And a lot of times that goes over really, really well, because in that scenario, you don't have to worry about any type of recurring costs or variable costs for, you know, the life cycle of the device. A lot of times people ask me questions, well, what happens after that 5 years? What do I do? Well, in that scenario, you can actually re-up and again, get another 1, 3, unlikely to have another 5-year subscription, just based on the cellular technology and the aging of the cellular technology as we continue to grow. So hopefully that's clear on how the procurement works. And that's really how we work with our partners like ByteSpeed, is they can help us into not only doing, you know, individual integration or proofs of concepts or making sure that things work in your environment, but they can also help to provide, you know, these subscription services through Cradlepoint. So as again, I sort of mentioned, you know, there's a lot of advantage to going with this model, because from a lifecycle management perspective, you know, it really makes things easy. It simplifies things and makes sure that you are really protected in your investment, not only from a very, very, you know, high grade piece of equipment from the hardware perspective, but also making sure that, you know, as additional changes come to NetCloud Manager, that you're supplied with them. As we continue to have, you know, updates from an operating system perspective or from a security perspective, you know, you make sure that you're protected on that. And then if something does go wrong, that you have extremely high levels of support in working with Cradlepoint support and Cradlepoint care. So again, this is a very advantageous model, and we've seen it be very, very successful over time. So I talked a little bit about this before, but you know, we work really hard on our care and our support. And I've worked at a lot of different places, including cellular carriers in the past. And there's nothing more challenging when you have to make a phone call and really, you know, have to explain details over and over again and get disconnected. You know, Cradlepoint works really hard at triaging care. It makes sure that they're creating cases as soon as they're being proposed. And you know, I've been very, very impressed at my time at Cradlepoint and really having a good experience with our customer care to make sure that, you know, if there's any issue, that you have somebody to call or email or chat with. You know, we've tried to provide different means of communication methods if there is a problem or a question, so that we're working on your time and not necessarily our time. We also have a Cradlepoint Connect community. So this is kind of a knowledge base. You could type in, you know, general things, like you could put in, you know, cellular network information, or how to integrate, you know, AVL or GPS. And that's going to bring up, you know, different articles that have been created by the community or by Cradlepoint itself to help you, you know, provision those devices. And then the knowledge base, you know, as I talked about, the knowledge base is very, very good, and our online support is very, very powerful, very, very good stuff. So again, when we look at the subscription model, we really feel like this is the only way to make sure that that we're providing high levels of service, and we're able to continue to provide a very, very good, powerful user experience for you and your folks in the field over time. So that's really all today. I really hope that you were able to take something away from this and really understand that, you know, that our environment and the environment in public safety continues to change. And it's going to continue to do that. We're going to see more and more applications and more requirements out of the connectivity in the field. And so making sure that your department is equipped with a mission critical enterprise grade solution for this task is really, really important. And you know, Cradlepoint, you know, we really strive to be on the forefront of technology, and we really work very, very hard to listen to our customer base to provide what they want. And so we stay super, super tight with those partners that I talked about before, we have very strong partnerships with folks like Panasonic, with folks like Axon. We want to understand where they're going so that we can provide a very, very high-end connectivity solution in and around your vehicle over time. So are there any questions?
If you guys want to throw anything in the chat that you have, Jonathan, it's always so fun to listen to you. You do such a good job of presenting. You're a practice presenter when you land in exactly 45 minutes through the minutes. I really appreciate it.
So Anna, if any of the folks think of a question after this call, how would they get in touch with you guys, and how would they get in touch with us?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to send a follow-up email to everyone that attended. Actually, everyone that registered maybe didn't attend. So you'll get a copy of the recording in case you want to go back and reference anything. And then all of our contact information will be on there. If you're just not 100% sure what you want to talk about your specific deployment, we can get you on a call with one of our engineers. Happy to get you preliminary pricing for deployments too. Yeah, just let us know. We'd be happy to connect.
Awesome. Again, I really wanted to thank you all for your time today. This has been fun, and this is something that I've been doing for a long time, and it's been awesome to see how this technology is evolving and really what it means to the officers in the field. So again, please include us, include ByteSpeed in any of your conversations and questions. And if we need to move towards a proof of concept, we would love to assist on that front as well. To really kind of get your hands on something and, to really vet it out, to get a better understanding of what I was talking about today. So again, thank you all very, very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to talking to you moving forward.
Thanks again, Jonathan. Have a great day. Have a great day, everyone.